Rogue logic. This is the way.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to introduce the third and final part of comic book collecting for beginners here at Rogue Logic. I hope you enjoyed parts 1 and 2. The first dealing with the different eras of comic books, and the second, primarily anyway, and the second dealing with storage and proper care of comic books to keep them in pristine condition. So whether you're looking to resell them or to have them forever, you'll keep them the way they need to be. So part 3 is going to be a few tips that I have for selling comic books that I think can help in that direction somewhat. Again, for my own purposes, I think getting into comic books just to sell them for a profit is not your best idea for making a mint. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule. You can occasionally find the unbelievable find at a flea market or something of that nature, but that becomes less and less probable as time has gone forward with pretty much comic books and comic book characters becoming part of pop culture. There's not too many people out there who don't know that they're worth something. So I always suggest that your best bet is to read them if you like them and enjoy them, and just do it for that reason. But either way, if you can make a profit doing it, I hope you're able to do that as well. So part 3 will be dealing with those, and probably just a little bit of a summary of a few other interesting trends in comic books that have come about in the last couple of decades. So with that, I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it with it. Okay, so those are the storage options that are basically used. And then what I'd like to really go into now is, why are you collecting comics if you're new to comics? Well, here's some advice. If you're getting into comic books because you want to make money,
the big box.
I would strongly caution you, if you don't know about the industry, if you don't know about the history, and you don't really know about comic books, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's very, very difficult and highly unlikely, unless you have a good amount of money to invest initially, that you're going to be able to do that. So what do I mean by that? If you're looking to make a profit, it's much harder than if you just love the comic books for themselves. For instance, I will do one more thing with storage here of comic books. And this is a side note for me, because the CGC sealed comic book container, which I'll show right here, that I despise. This is a personal preference. I do not ever believe in putting a comic book into something where it's sealed and it can never be enjoyed. That destroys the whole purpose for me. Now, I do understand that over the last 20 or so years, maybe a little longer, that has become a huge deal, because you send it off to be graded. They have professional graders do it. There are a couple companies, but CGC is the one that predominantly runs the comic book grading, and I believe they may even have eased the other one out of business. Excuse me again. But at any rate, they will give the comic book a rating on its condition. And because they're sealed, yes, people will pay more for them. So again, if you're in it for the money, then that may be the way to go for you. I will never do that, and I just don't believe in it. If you want to have a comic book that's worth a lot of money, put it in a safe. I just don't. It's just something that I disagree with. So back to what I was saying. So if you're in it for the money, the few tips that I could give you are these. Number one, with the rate that comic books have become part of popular culture, the characters, specifically the superheroes, one thing that you can do is try to look up obscure heroes and villains and characters. And some of them you can still find for relatively cheap prices because they haven't yet premiered in a Disney show or a Marvel movie or a DC Universe movie or whatever, even independent characters. And if that hasn't happened yet, the price hasn't skyrocketed. So you can go and look for characters and hope that they're going to be in some major production and do well. Now, there have been characters that were completely D or X list. I mean, these are characters no one cared about. And then when they do them correctly, they become amazing. One that comes to mind is Peacemaker. The show was just incredible. I mean, it was really funny. It had comedic elements, but yet it had great action. And I'm not even a big fan. In fact, I don't really like John Cena very much, but he was great in that role. And yeah, I mean, it was just a great show. Now, as far as how much has they skyrocket, how much has that character skyrocket in value? I don't know. I'm gonna do a quick bit of research. I will put that up here and just see if there's a trend with the prices. But he's also no Superman or Captain America or Spider-Man. I mean, that, it doesn't mean all of a sudden they're going to be worth $30,000. So, in his first appearance, I believe, I'm going to check and I'll put it right here if I'm right or wrong. I think it was in Suicide Squad, the original volume, but I may be off on that. But either way,
Silver
it wasn't
Age
that
technically.
old.
Smarty
the character
pants.
isn't from the Golden Age or the Silver Age. That being said, that's one of the ideas you can do. The other one is, there's still things like eBay. There's still, flea markets. There's still some people out there that may not know what they have. If you want to go searching, you can very well do that. As far as eBay goes, look around. And if you can see something being bid on, and let's say, for instance, again, I'll give the advice, even though I won't do it myself. If you want to bid on a comic that isn't in a CGC sealed case, and you know that comic is worth a good amount of money, let's just say it's approximately $1,000 comic book, and maybe you can hit it at the right time. Maybe it's in pretty good condition. You bid on it, you have the money to invest, and maybe you bid $8.95 and you win. So you get the comic book. It's in the correct condition that you paid for. Let's just call it VF. I'll get back to comic book grading in a moment. But at that point, now you're going to have to send it off to this CGC company. That does take some time. If you do it in bulk, like a lot of comic shops do, you get a better deal for their charging of the price that they charge for how much it is. I will try to put a little information on their pricing up here, but I'm not familiar with it because you've already heard that.
You already said
yes,
that.
I know I'm being repetitive. So anyway, that's another way you could do it. And then when it comes back to you, obviously it's graded. It's in the CGC sealed container. And you may be able to resell it for a profit of $300-$400, maybe more. I don't know. But those are the two tips that I can think of for beginners that would be very good for you to try and, learn, get into comic books. And if you're doing it for profit. Now, if you're getting into comic books for the really good reason, I should say, is because you love it and you discovered it and you want to collect them, then that's really what you should concentrate on. I'm not going to say I don't. I've been collecting comic books since I got the first one when I was about 3 years old in an airport. I don't even remember where my mother got it, and it was Batman. I still have it. There's no cover left to it. I replaced it with a nicer version, and I have a lot of comic books, and yes, some of them are worth money. At this point, I'm not going to part with any of them. But the point is, I love the genre. I'm an artist myself. I have always just loved comic books. It was just something that clicked right away when I was first a very little child. So, what's really good about comic books in 2023 is that you are going to be able to find so much no matter what your interests may be. Now, yes, I prefer and enjoy superhero comic books. Although I do like some other companies, I am very traditional as far as I love Marvel and DC. I don't understand this. I'm a Marvel person or a DC person. I would never ever really make a choice on that either way. They both have great characters. They both have great writers, great stories. And that's really where my choice comes in. It's honestly the script, the writer, and the artist. That is what makes a comic or breaks a comic. I mean, unfortunately, now and then you can have one or the other. You can have an incredible storyline and you either don't care for the artist or they're really not that good, or the opposite. You can have great art and the storyline kind of is predictable and not creative. That kind of sucks, but there are so many that are so good and that have both incredible artwork and incredible writing. Now, as I was saying, if you can think of it, it's basically a comic book. Video games, movie franchises, they still have funny comics that, have been around forever, like Archie. They've updated a lot of those, which not my thing, but, they're a little bit more serious. They still have Scooby-Doo. Most every movie and television show that you can think of. James Bond, Indiana Jones, everything from, they have fantasy, they have Dungeons and Dragons comic books, Magic the Gathering. There'd be no way I could tell you. But what's good about that is that there's something for everybody. So it's very diverse. Definitely was centered on young boys, basically, for many years, adolescent, kids, teenagers. And back in the day when, comic books weren't cool, it really wasn't too cool to be into comic books. But I didn't really give a shit about anything like that, so I was anyway. But now, the comic books are written by diverse groups of people. They have characters that are, basically everything you can imagine. There's no limitations on race or gender or anything like that. If there's something that is out there, they have it, and it's been done. Some people, oh, it's too much. Well, why is it too much? It's the more diversity that you have, the better, and it has something for everyone. So, I guess that's all I'm going to say about that. As far as that grading system I was telling you about, you can look it up online. Obviously, it'll give you the parameters of the grading, but make sure that if you're going to try to grade your own comic books and sell them, make sure you're accurate, because people who know grading are going to call you on it if you try to sell it. Now, what my method of fixing that is, if I do sell comic books ever, I've sold for other people, and I've sold when I had doubles and things, and once in a great while I did purchase something to buy and know that it would be for a profit. But if, let's say, you grade it and you decide that it's a VF, which stands for very fine, put it down as fine. It's just one grade lower, because you're just going to do yourself a favor. For instance, let's say you're selling it on eBay. Take a lot of photos, okay? You can show them that if someone who knows comic books is looking at it, they're going to be looking at these photos. So one of the front, one of the spine, one of the back, some interior shots. It'll have a lot to do if the color is still really vibrant, if it is faded at all, if the staples are... It has all to do with all these factors. But what I'm getting at is if you list it for one grade below, say a fine, they're going to know it's very fine, and they're going to be more inclined to bid on it. So you're always better off erring on the side of caution, because you don't want to deal with returns I'm going to say it right now. I don't let comic books be my whole life, but there are some people who do. Same can be said for video games, action figures, role-playing games. They get, hey, I'm just saying it like it is. They're fucking nuts, some of them. So you really need to make sure that you give great descriptions, answer their questions, and give them a lot of photos. So that's that. That grading system that I told you about, just look it up online, but I'll put a graph right over here. And if I'm not forgetting any, if I forget one, then I did, but I'll put the graph up. There's poor, there's good, very good, fine, very fine, near mint, and mint.
Missed a
Now,
few,
you're
genius.
almost never going to have a mint comic book. It's almost just non-existent because there's always some tiny flaw, but near mint is the standard for basically there's nothing wrong with the comic book, but if you had it graded, chances are it's going to be a 9.8 out of 10 or a 9 point, you can get, I would imagine there are some graded comics that are perfect 10s. And I will put that right up here if that is the case. There probably are. This isn't something that I've delved into that deeply to know how many perfect comic books there are. So I realize I went a little bit over on my time. So that's 101 collecting for today. I will definitely have a part 2 that will go into a lot more detail to help you, whether you're trying to get comic books for profit or for your own enjoyment or for both. So with that, be kind to one another and always be kind to animals. I don't need to tell you why, just do it. And peace.
I'm the man of steel. I'm the man of bronze. I can fly. I'm a doctor. I'm bulletproof. So am I. I have heat vision. Just go fuck yourself.